Belgravia does have the ability to pretend that nothing ever alters. Those sugar-white terraces glint in London light like pearls, beautiful and uninterested. But beneath that serene gloss, one sale has created a ripple in royal-gazing communities. Sarah, Duchess of York, Fergie to a public that has watched her come and go in adoration and scandal, has sold her Belgravia townhouse. Not with victorious profit, but with a pang, a near £500,000 loss. And so the question comes crashing down. Most press releases can't soften. Is this just an investor selling out? Or a strategic withdrawal to prevent another older home from slipping away from her grasp? Sarah Ferguson's tale of money has always been a fable of the modern sort written in royal script, charm and wit on one page, mistakes, debts, and expensive whims on another. In 2022, when the world seemed to be newly unsettled, she took a dramatic, almost vintage step. She paid cash, no bank loan, no mortgage, reportedly $425 million for a small piece of Belgravia tranquility. On paper, a mother's plan, a future-proofed investment for her daughters, Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice. Foresighted, safe, almost dull in its caution. The sort of choice you make when you desire stability to at last override the headlines. And then, 3 years later, the door shut once more, this time on a buyer. The townhouse sold in August without fanfare for about $3.85 million. Do the maths and it nips. Approximately a $400,000 shortfall prior to charges. For most, that's a lifetime savings. For Sarah, it all rolls too neatly into a known format. In money, out money, and a line of excuses that never quite ring entirely true. Are we being treated to a clever read of the market? Or the cost of firefighting on an endless basis? Her spokesperson delivered a soothing tale, the sort intended to anchor the boat. She was not interested in selling, he explained. The tenant was eager to purchase. The timing was opportune. It was always an investment for the girls, and the profit would be reinvested for them. At first blush, it's plausible, tidy even. But timing in Fergie's universe is never simply timing. It's choreography. It's survival. And it almost invariably is paired with another headline. For as that sale was concluded, her image in the public eye was bearing a new bruise. An old scandal revived in the cold, present tense. Private emails from years before had re-emerged in the light, bringing embarrassment and penalty with them. Charities that had previously opened their doors to her name on their letterhead suddenly drew back. Connections were broken, memberships suspended. Was this a coincidence? Or did the earth under Belgravia move exactly when the earth under Sarah did? This is where the narrator in me breaks and poses the question that gnaws at the periphery of decent explanations. Why, if a tenant simply offered an irresistible proposition, does the relocation feel like triage? Why does the loss appear less like bad timing and more like willful hurt? Hurt incurred now to prevent something worse down the line. Let's discuss the other house in this tale, the one you don't sell, and yet which costs everything to maintain. Royal Lodge, the grand, tale-laden residence that binds Sarah's current to Prince Andrew's troubled future. Maintaining that grandeur is not as simple as dusting over portraits. It's bill upon bill, maintenance that makes Belgravia seem frugal. If you are struggling to maintain a fortress, what do you sell first? A townhouse bought to secure your daughter's future? Or the home that grounds your whole sense of self? Do you give up the chess piece in order to protect the king? Naturally, we must say it straight. No one within the camp will confess to desperation. The standard line is neat. The reinvestment argument is cautious, but psychology whispers another tale. When reputations are shaken, individuals cling to control. They prefer liquidity to emotion. They turn walls into options and options into minutes. And minutes, when charities are retreating and emails are circulating, may be the most precious currency of all. And there's also a pattern we can't help but notice. Decades have seen Sarah's life with money swing between extravagance and need, between high-rolling access and the stern mathematics of repercussion. Audiences see the beat now, a big splashy introduction, a fall, an attempt to recover, another reversal. It's a beat that arouses sympathy and suspicion in equal parts. Are we observing a woman being repeatedly punished by the past? Or a woman who won't stop trying to make deals with it? And consider the emotional undercurrents behind the press releases. Such a sale at a loss is not just figures on a line. It's an indication of stress, urgency, maybe even a personal fear that the institutions once eager to provide cover are backing away. In such families, favoritism, protection, and backroom deals occur in rooms we don't get to see. But when those rooms turn cold, when patronages contract and donors scowl, the cold inevitably seeps into the hallway. What of the daughters at the center of that initial promise? If the townhouse was intended for Beatrice and Eugenie, what does reinvested accordingly amount to in practice? A different piece of property? A portfolio transaction? Or merely a method to say, have faith, while funds are redeployed in order to stabilize the here and now? No suspicion, only the question any parent would raise if a safety net were suddenly unraveled. Clarity is not often an initial choice in a family defined by image management. And then there is the plain human factor. Shame. Those old emails resurfaced didn't merely cost affiliations, they reopened reputation sores. When public humiliation meets private financial duress, individuals move quickly, sometimes painfully quickly. Liquidate here, prop up there, make it through the month, keep the doors open, and try, always try, to stay a single beat ahead of the next headline. If you ever were curious what gaslighting in the era of press releases looks like, it's in the sugar-coated language concealing hard realities. Not interested in selling, good moment, reinvested. Soft words scribbled over a bruise. Where does that leave us then? With a sold-at-lost townhouse in London's best-groomed neighborhood, a Duchess adamant that the move was merely practical, daughters promised stability, charities that have withdrawn, and a bigger property, Royal Lodge, throwing a long, costly shadow. Was this an ordinary sale? Or the discreet price of maintaining a dilapidated grandeur? Here's my interpretation. The figures say one thing, but the timing says another. You don't surrender a squeaky clean Belgravia beachhead in a rush unless the current needs breathing space. Perhaps this is survival. Perhaps it's strategy. Perhaps, in Sarah Ferguson's universe, they're interchangeable. A single ill-advised message can reverse years of carefully crafted rebranding. In Sarah Ferguson's case, a handful of resurfaced emails didn't just raise eyebrows, they yanked her back into a familiar posture. Shoulders squared, chin up, and both hands busy putting out fires. In a heartbeat, she was once again defending her name, salvaging dignity, and, most urgently, protecting the balance sheet that keeps her world intact. Isn't that the pattern we've seen for decades with Fergie? A warm smile for the cameras, and behind it, a calculator clicking through the night. Because Sarah has always straddled two realities. In one, she's the approachable face of a modern monarchy, mother to two widely liked princesses, a doting grandmother, a woman who speaks candidly about mental health, kindness, and resilience. In the second, she is a survivor of debt typhoons and business flops, a public personality with a private balance sheet that never seems to sleep, endorsements that failed to materialize, projects that promised illumination but brought only flame, overdue bills, and the occasional subtle bailout from strategically placed acquaintances. So when news emerged that she'd sold her Belgravia townhouse for a loss, it didn't look like coincidence. It looked like penalty. If you've lived on a money knife edge, you don't wait for the market to be spotless. You go when pressure dictates you go. And let's be in no doubt about the scene of action here. Belgravia is not an address, it's a statement. It's embassies and inherited wealth, silent chauffeurs and unobtrusive doormen. Yes, the top London market has deflated from its feverish high. The indices confirm prices there still linger more than 20% below their peaks. On paper, a similar $400,000 loss does fit the curve. But if it's Sarah Ferguson, nothing happens in a vacuum. Her financial choices tend to revolve around the same sun. A huge Windsor home with history in its walls and bills that never seem to cease arriving. Right at the heart of her universe is Royal Lodge, the Grade 2 listed, sprawling mansion once occupied by the Queen Mother, now home to Fergie and her former husband, Prince Andrew. It's romantic in one breath and incendiary the next, divorced yet under the same roof. A sanctuary that is also a lightning rod. Since King Charles's ascension, whispers became messages. Downsize, move elsewhere, look at Frogmore Cottage. The Yorks, however, have pointed to a long-term lease running to 2078, contingent on appropriate maintenance. There's the rub. Royal Lodge isn't a sentimental cottage. It's a small country to govern, 30 rooms, manicured grounds, and a relentless parade of costs. Roofs don't care about public opinion. Boilers don't pause for scandals. Security, staff, grounds, compliance, each line item tallies up. Estimates whisper of $400,000 to $500,000 a year, possibly more. And unlike the times when Andrew's public position yielded consistent revenue, that well has dried up. So where does the revenue originate now? A Navy pension? Investments? Family assistance? We don't know, and we can only guess. What we do know is that bills come on time even when reputations fail too. Now insert the Belgravia sale into that context. The official spin was that it was merely a good time to sell, prompted by a tenant willing to purchase. Maybe, but consider the order of events: a reputational blow-up, charities bowing out, corporate prudence kicking in, public sympathy tainted by exhaustion. Under those conditions, liquidity is oxygen. Selling at a discount now appears more triage than failure. Take the hit now to purchase the one thing money can't typically buy: time. Time to stay in compliance at the lodge. Time to deal with optics. Time to scout out the next decent revenue source without the roof literally caving in. Isn't that the silent calculation you undertake when image and infrastructure are both hanging by a thread? And image is currency in Windsorland, sometimes the only currency that spends. Think about the optics. Give up a London presence for under what you bought it for, but still be settled at a palace compound that eats money. To the general viewer, that is unsettling. It sends a message, perhaps inadvertent, perhaps deliberate, that keeping up with status in the royal sphere takes precedence over cold, hard cash. Is that right? Perhaps not. Is it how it looks? Yes. And perception has a tendency to solidify into narrative. Meanwhile, the revenue side of the ledger is thin. Fergie's charisma used to open 1,000 studio doors. Talk shows, wellness tie-ins, product lines. Her name could sell a season. But brand risk has become a specter she can't shake. Since the last email debacle, charities that proffered moral integrity and cool introductions have backed away. Commercial partners hesitate. Goodwill from her 2023 health struggles, breast cancer, then a skin cancer scare, accrued to her real sympathy, but sympathy doesn't amount to annuity. It doesn't pay maintenance workers. It doesn't repair roofs. It doesn't make up for lost patronage due to scandal. Relook at the career turns: children's books, lifestyle pushes, public speaking, even romance novels. Some comebacks were respectable. Others attracted side-eye and headlines. None individually could comfortably fund a 30-room landmark. And that's without even considering the rumors. Contractors seeking payment, maintenance held up, little telltale signs like messy borders and faded paint interpreted as signs of strain beneath. Perhaps all these things are being overread by a voracious press. Perhaps they're the kinds of signs that show when a family is on defense every month, which brings me to the emotional fuel of this narrative: control. When reputations totter, individuals grasp for the levers they still control. Selling Belgravia at a loss appears to be loss. Perhaps it is control, selecting where the pain falls instead of waiting for pain to select you. In that interpretation, Sarah is not merely divesting an asset, she's purchasing room to maneuver. She's converting a fixed point into liquid possibilities, cash that can be directed toward the responsibility that governs everything else. Maintain Royal Lodge to the standards, maintain the lease intact, maintain the single address that still holds power, familiarity, and a sense of self. But what of the vow taken at the beginning? That Belgravia was for the girls, an investment for Beatrice and Eugenie. The camp now says proceeds will be reinvested for them. Reinvested how? Into what? A different property? A financial portfolio? Or, as cynics will wonder, into the immediate demands of a Windsor estate that burns money faster than headlines burn out? I'm not accusing. I'm asking the question any parent would if the safety net appears to have been repurposed. In discreetly run families, things tend to be last clear, and we need to call out the psychology that keeps repeating in this drama: sunk cost devotion to great spaces, the authority of appearances, the subtle gaslighting of soft pronouncements, good time, reinvested, appropriate standard, that sound plausible while hiding pressure. There is also the sense of favoritism within royal ranks. Who is asked to downsize, who is allowed to stay, whose leases are holy, whose addresses are open season. Does the institution enforce its rules fairly, or does proximity to particular corridors continue to warp the results? The public asks because the disparity is easy to spot. So, was the Belgravia sale a smart read of a down market, as the numbers suggest? Or was it a sacrifice made on the altar of a single, consuming priority? Keep Royal Lodge alive at all costs. If you're Sarah, perhaps the choice isn't philosophical at all. Perhaps it's logistical. A $400,000 loss might hurt the eyes on the page, but if it pays for a year of calm, a year to rebrand, a year to mend fences with patrons and partners, then it isn't a loss. It's the cost you pay to remain in the game. And here's the uncomfortable reality. Sarah Ferguson reinvented herself more times than most public figures have the opportunity to fail. Exile to redemption, applause to apology, her life has been in seasons. Each return seemed melodramatic, yes, but each came with a price tag. Roll the credits, but the bill comes home with you. Where does that leave us tonight? With a Duchess who smiles for the cameras while negotiating with reality behind them? With a Windsor house that functions like a living promise and an endless expense? With two daughters who were told an investment existed for them, even as that investment has been converted into something else? The walls aren't closing in, but the rooms, metaphorically, emotionally, financially, feel smaller. In our next chapter, we'll examine the lease itself, what appropriate standard likely means in pounds and paint cans, what happens if maintenance slips, and how pressure from the palace might escalate if the finances don't hold. If you're following the money, don't blink now. This is the part where small clauses turn into big consequences.